Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello everybody. It's Christmas Eve of 2017. I'm here coming at you from Auxiliary Control Room B. That's for the Doctor Who fans out there who would kind of get a chuckle from that. But basically an alternate location, alternate studio, I guess you might say. The TARDIS has multiple control rooms if you're a Doctor Who fan. And anyways, it's a very funny bit from the Tom Baker era where he operates the TARDIS from Auxiliary Control Room B. So I just wanted to reference it because I just love it so much. Anyways, we're here today to talk about Nancy Grace's most recent podcast, and a question that she asks during it. She asks the question basically like, Tom, why are you and I the enemy when we try to talk about this or whatever? Well, I'm going to do my best to try to explain that to you today, Nancy. I'm going to do my best. One of the main things, Nancy, is that you keep representing certain things. For instance, you claim that Teresa Halbach was afraid to go to Avery Salvage, even though I and many other people have posted the documents on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, anywhere where there's people that are talking or interested in this case. There are people posting the documents that show that that is not true. She was not afraid to go there. She knew what she was going, she knew where she was going. She knew what lie there. And your claims that she was afraid and scared are completely baseless. And when you continue to make those types of claims, it undermines the credibility of what you say. It's as simple as that, really. Anyways, I don't want to get too far into that just yet. I want to go ahead and leave that for when we're listening to parts of her show that I have already, that we're going to be looking at here in this video. The other thing is I'm also going to be showing a document in this video that's going to be further, reason why why Nancy Grace is just ignoring what's out there and blindly following this old line that is completely untrue, and still claiming that Stephen lied to her when Stephen told her the same story he had been telling everybody else and has continued to tell to this day. So her screaming as loud as she can that Stephen lied to her really is another thing that makes her lose credibility. Because it makes no sense. Stephen's story has never changed. He, unlike Brendan, never allowed the officers to browbeat him. He continued to tell the story that he told from the first day till now. He kept his consistency. Now, Brendan was a little more susceptible to the pressures put on him by the investigators as a youth, as a very susceptible young man that, a suggestible young man that he was, for a few reasons that collide and come together that kind of create this perfect storm where the poor kid was just a lion to the wolves, or a lamb, to the wolves. That's what it is. He was nowhere near equipped to handle the situation he found himself in. These are the reasons why, Nancy, and we're going to go over them, but I have a document that proves now that. So I'm going to be showing you a document that shows that Dean was asking Kratz about the hard drive, the Dassey hard drive, and getting it and that sort of stuff before the trial. Most likely because he heard something about it. Because Kratz and them had already went and picked it up and he has to tell he has to tell Dean in this letter, oh, you can come and pick it up from Calumet County whenever you're in Calumet, and you can just come and pick it up from us here. So, this means that the defense was asking for that stuff. So it begs the question, why was Kratz and Fassbender hiding it? And that's what they did. Okay? They took the report and the CD and all of the information about the forensic examination of the Dassey computer that was done by Grand Chute officer, the officer in Grand Chute that performed it, the forensic examination of the computer, and that CD of what he found and all the stuff that was there, and then the report that accompanied it, which was a lot of his notes from when he was doing the testing, that all gets collected, given to Tom Fassbender, not put in Calumet evidence storage, not put in DCI's evidence storage, not put in DOJ's evidence storage, but in Tom Fassbender's own personal custody. Right? And then all that you get in the discovery that was given to the defense was basically a flyer, a tiny piece of paper that alluded to the fact that there was a CD and a report. But you think about it. If you were waiting to see an analysis of somebody's computer, you certainly wouldn't be looking for a piece of paper. You would be looking for a packet. Something more than a flyer. Okay, it shows that they were trying to hide and suppress what was going on that Dassey computer. And we're going to be seeing that document here today. And, but we're going to go ahead and move right now. We're going to go ahead and move on into the opening segment of Nancy Grace talking once again about how Teresa was lured and scared about going to that, all the same stuff, the same lies and same misinformation that she has been passing for years.
I guess you should call it a documentary, Netflix Making a Murderer. But what is the real story behind the brutal sex assault and murder of a 25-year-old photographer, Teresa Halbach? The very latest in the saga of Steven Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, who now both insist they're innocent, but I know different. I know a different story because I was lied straight to my face. Right now, a legal motion in court as the courts bring down the hammer. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us. The truth about what happened to Teresa Halbach. With us, the reality is that Brendan Dassey gave multiple confessions. He confessed to his mother on the phone. He confessed to his cousin, Kayla. He confessed to police. He confessed on a videotape confession by his own defense attorney. But let's take it from the beginning. Tom, tell me about the case. For those listeners just joining us, how did it all start?
Nancy, thanks for having me on. The case started basically with a missing person, Teresa Halbach, being missing. And from there, it went into a homicide investigation when her vehicle was found on the Avery salvage yard where Steven Avery lived. And from there, the evidence kept mounting, pointing directly at Steven Avery. And the evidence speaks for itself. He was ultimately convicted of the murder of Teresa Halbach, and his nephew, who he invited to help with the abduction, sex assault, and murder, was also convicted based on Brendan Dassey statements that he made, the multiple statements you already referred to.
Take a listen to what Steven Avery, the target, the star of Netflix Making a Murderer, said to me.
Steven, I understand that Teresa came to your auto salvage
lot to take photos for the Auto Trader, correct?
Yes, she did. She came down by me.
Okay, and Stephen, it's my understanding that also you state that you saw her car leave.
Yes, I did.
About what time?
She was there between 2 and 2:30.
2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, Stephen, how is it that her car could get all the way back in this pit area where there is, well, I believe we're showing it right now. I mean, wouldn't she have to pass back by the office again?
Well, on the outskirts of the office, otherwise back by me or back by Redon's pit in the corner is all open.
It's all open.
Yeah,
so
anybody can drive in there.
Mr. Avery, did you see anyone else come in, anyone unusual that didn't belong there?
Well, Thursday night, me and my brother had to go to Menards to pick up some wood with the flatbed, and I seen taillights back by me. Wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
But we turned around, and we went back there, Chucky parked on the side, and I took the flashlight out of the flatbed,
Okay.
and I looked around by me and behind me, but I didn't see none.
That is from CNN's HLN program that I hosted for many, many years. So he lied outright, Tom Fassbender. I mean, the reality of what happened to Teresa Halbach is that she went to go take the pictures. He overcame her. He tied her up and chained her to a bed, cut off her hair, stripped her, raped her, brought over his nephew, told him to, quote, have sex with her. Brendan Dassey also raped her as she begged him not to. Then they stabbed her as she screamed and cried and begged him not to. Dassey also stabbed her. Then to make sure she was dead, they shot her. Then burned her body, using her clothes to wipe up her own blood. Threw her clothes on top of her naked body on a fire pit out in the backyard of the auto salvage lot. And then piled things like tires and whatever was around on top of that to make sure her body burned. In the fire, in the days that followed, police found bits of her bones, teeth, and the studs off the back of her Daisy Fuentes jeans. Venu Varghese, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, you handle appeals and post-conviction motions. Explain to me why he believes he should have a new trial. I'm talking about the nephew, Brendan Dassey, who the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals just rejected.
First of all, Nancy, the evidence is not overwhelming against Dassey. There is no DNA linking him that shows that he was involved in any rape. The issue of the confession is here. And with all due respect to the detective, the confession stinks. There was a lot of evidence that was fed to him, to a kid who was 16 years old, who has a very low IQ.
Now, hold on. Wait a minute, Venu. Wait a minute. Are you talking about the confession that never came into court, taken by his own defense attorney, who, when he saw the case, said, we got to get you a deal, Dassey? And he took a video interview with leading questions and egging him on to give an answer to use to give the prosecutors to show that Brendan Dassey would be a great witness for the state against Stephen Avery.
No,
then when Kaczynski leaves the case, that is what happened, and that never came in front of the jury.
But that's not what I'm talking about, Nancy. I'm talking about what came in front of the jury. You have gaps. You have all these leading questions for a kid. Think about it. Imagine if your kid didn't have the same capacity as somebody else, and he's being fed answers. And every time that he's being told, look, things will be okay. And at one point he's like, can I get back to school? The Supreme Court should find that interrogations of juveniles, particularly those with a low mental capacity, is cruel and unusual. I mean, this is a kid who's well beyond.
Oh, okay. So if you have a low IQ and you're 16 and you rape a woman tied up and chained to a
DNA
bed and then
evidence of that,
stab her
Nancy.
dead, we don't want to take your confession. Because just so you know, the mother came with him. Then the mother gave permission for police to speak to him. The first few times that they spoke to him, they thought he was just a witness that knew something. Then he implicated himself. He's Detective Tom Fassbender. I'd like to hear your response to Vinu Varghese.
Thank you, Nancy. The interview in question that he is referring to is exactly that. It started out as an interview until Brendan Dassey essentially blew us away with some admissions that he made, beginning with the fact that he said he raped Teresa Halbach at the urging of Stephen Avery less than 50 minutes into the interview. And I stress, this is a soft interview, no yelling, no deprivation of basic necessities. And he mentions that information was fed to him. There were times when information was fed to him and there were some leading questions, but I can go through that interview and show just as many instances of him providing information to us that we had no idea he was going to provide, essentially, like I said, blowing us away. And also many instances where he resisted any type of suggestion and denied involvement, such as him actually shooting Teresa. He vehemently denied that and did not change his mind. And in many other instances, including control question.
We know that Teresa had a tattoo on her stomach. Do you remember that? Do you disagree with me when I say that?
No, but I don't know what it was.
That he denied any knowledge of. So I
The
disagree.
reality is, Tom, if he had stuck with Kaczynski, who was trying to cut a deal for him, he'd probably be up for parole right now. I don't know that he would get it the first time around, but he would probably already be up for parole right now. But instead, he launched a defense that he gave a false confession and that he really got the idea for everything he was saying because he read the book Kiss the Girls.
There's a couple other things to bring out. Number one is, and I don't think it was admitted at trial, but Tom and Mark Wiegert also investigated a threat that Brendan made to a high school girl who was picking on him. And Brendan said, if you don't want you, you're going to end up like Teresa.
Just says it very casually. I want you to hear what his grandfather tells him in a secretly recorded conversation. Now, this is telling Dassey to keep his mouth shut.
You stick to your damn guns and say nothing happened. They made me say all of this. Darn that. And stick to your guns.
And listen to this.
Don't go for a pre-bargain or this and that. Because you do that, then you're hurting both of you guys. You understand that, Brendan?
Today we are bringing you the very latest on the two stars of Netflix series Making a Murderer. The latest on Stephen Avery and his cousin Brendan Dassey, who were both convicted in the brutal rape and murder of a 25-year-old photographer, Teresa Halbach. I'll never forget it, seeing her picture for the first time and trying to help find her when she was a missing person. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals has just rejected Dassey's claims that he was forced to give a confession and he had nothing to do with Halbach's murder, and based his whole confession on a book he read.
So, you've been able to see there so far a lot of the reasons why the information that is pumped out by Nancy Grace and even Tom Fassbender when he's on the show, or this guy John Lee from the Post-Crescent who's on the show, there's all this information that people are talking about, but it's not, a lot of it is provable. Well, many of the things that Nancy says are provably false. I went over that in the beginning of the video. There are a few things that Tom Fassbender says that are very much proven false. You heard him mention the control question. He mentioned it. He's mentioned that thing again, trying to claim that control question was proof that Brendan was resisting the officers and not nearly as suggestible as everybody's trying to claim he is. It's absolute bull. It's absolute bull. Brendan clearly flip-flops on that question after saying, like she didn't have one. You know, Tom Fassbender asked Brendan, do you disagree with me? And it's like suddenly Brendan's like, oh, no, I don't disagree with you, but I just don't know what it was. And it's what? I don't know why the transcripts say that he said where it was, because he does not say where it was. He says what it was. So it's like all these little things add up. Why are all these little misrepresentations happening? I mean, especially on something so important. I mean, even the Seventh Circuit majority judges chose to cite that control question where Brendan clearly flip-flops, clearly acquiesces, and shows exactly how suggestible that he is. And they cited that in their opinion as proof that Brendan was resisting officers. So, but, I wouldn't have talked about it, but Tom brought it up again. And he keeps bringing that up. He's clinging to it. He was talking about how he could pull out just as many things. If we could pull out everything that we could pull out that supports our argument that they were feeding things to him, he says he can pull out an equal number of things where he wasn't fed and he wasn't given a leading question, where he provided information that was, good information or whatever, basically. Oh, yes? Let's see it, Tom. Yeah, let's see that. I'm all ears. Anyways, so now I'm going to move into a document right here that I just want to show everybody. While I'm on the topic of Tom Fassbender here, we all know that that Zellner got an affidavit from Jerry Buting recently talking about how the fact that they were not the forensic examination that was done on the Dassey computer was not made available to them. And then we have this where Ken Kratz had left a flyer, literally, in the discovery, saying that there was a packet of notes and a CD of what was discovered on the Dassey computer, and that's all it was a piece of paper in the biggest batch of discovery that was sent from the prosecution of the state to Stephen's defense lawyers. In the biggest batch, it was a flyer, literally, that was in there saying that there was a packet and a CD. Are you kidding me? Why would you play games with the evidence, especially when you know that the defense was asking about it, as you're going to see in the document I'm about to show you. So here's a document where we can see that Kratz was clearly getting asked about the Dassey computer, the hard drive for the Dassey computer, and I'm sure any forensics that went along with it. Here we are, clearly, where Ken Kratz is acknowledging the fact that he got a letter from Dean Strang on April 5th of 2006 asking about the hard drive and the computer and that sort of stuff. And we know that Ken Kratz ended up hiding the forensic report from that. So the way it kind of looks is that everybody got wind of this computer for some reason, and everybody felt it was important pretty much right around the same time, because here's Ken Kratz telling Dean that they already grabbed it, but if he wants the hard drive, he can come pick it up from Calumet the next time he's there. And so there's clearly this interest, and yet Kratz still suppresses the information when they get the forensics back from Grand Chute on that computer. He suppresses it. Okay, so to give you a little explanation, what happened is that Calumet and Tom Fassbender took the hard drive and the computer and stuff over to Grand Chute Police Department, basically. Real nearby, but it's a police department nearby to where Calumet and Manitowoc kind of are. And they took it to an officer over there who had experience doing computer forensic type of testing. And so they took it there. That guy does his thing, creates a report of all of his findings, and a CD with the material that he retrieved that he thought would be of interest, of course, and stuff like that. So there's this CD and there's this lab report, basically, of his lab notes as he was doing all this testing of the hard drive and the computer. And this is what's so strange, because you saw that letter right there. Clearly, Dean Strang was expressing an interest in knowing about that computer, about that hard drive, or whatever, however you want to look at it. But he was expressing that interest. And what does Ken Kratz do after they get the results of that forensic examination of that computer? He sits on it. He tries to hide it. I don't care what people say. Oh, he put that flyer in the discovery that said it existed. No, yeah. You know what? I'm sure Jerry and Dean were looking for a packet, something significant that would correlate to the analyzation of a computer hard drive, not a little leaflet or a flyer left in a huge, the biggest batch of discovery that they got from the prosecution. And then to add to that, it's not just that. Add to that this little fact, that it was not stored in anybody's official evidence locker. Not in Calumet's, not DCI's, and not in DOJ's. Nobody's. You know who it was stored with? In the very specific custody of Tom Fassbender. In his own personal custody. You know what that suggests to me? It suggests to me that by him holding it in his own personal custody, that it wouldn't have created a paper trail by him logging it in to an evidence room somewhere that might have caught Jerry and Dean's attention, and they might have been able to go and discover it. So, to keep it hush, Fassbender gives birth to Fassbender's Evidence Storage Solutions, so you can keep it on the hush. That's what's going on. This is another thing about this case that's just BS, complete crap, and I just can't. I can't even just, Fassbender is he's dirty. I can't see any other way around it. He keeps citing the control question, which proves the opposite of what he says it does. He keeps just over and over and over. By him claiming that Stephen called Auto Trader, claiming that Teresa never came to his property, another lie. Another bull lie. It's just, it goes on, and it's ridiculous. So, we're going to go ahead now and move into some more of the Nancy Grace, podcast, and point out some more of the issues.
I don't know how it turns out, Tom, that we end up to be the bad guys in this scenario.
Oh, really, Nancy? Well, you only have to watch this video to maybe get a few suggestions.
I mean, Teresa Halbach was brutally raped and murdered. And there is no doubt in my mind Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey did it. True, Dassey may have been under Avery's, encouragement. But he did this thing. Nobody made him rape her and stab her and stand there and watch her body bleed. What is the physical evidence? Because Avery also says he's innocent and that he's part of a police frame-up.
There was a lot of physical evidence, a lot of scientific physical evidence, to include Stephen Avery's blood in Teresa Halbach's RAV4 vehicle. It was found in many different places throughout the vehicle, including by the ignition switch, which has been mentioned, in different forms, showing that there was an active bleeder in that car. Subsequently, when arresting Stephen Avery, his finger was examined, and it had a fairly fresh cut on the finger, which would have been conducive to that type of bleeding. Also, there was a bullet found in the garage from Stephen Avery's, the .22 caliber rifle that was hanging above Stephen Avery's bed in his bedroom, that was forensically matched to that rifle. That bullet fragment also had Stephen Avery or Teresa Halbach's DNA on it. Teresa Halbach's possessions, her camera, her PDA, her telephone, her cell phone, were found just outside of Stephen Avery's trailer in his burn barrel, which witnesses saw him go to putting things in that day that Teresa was abducted by him and was burning that day. Those burned remnants were found in his burn barrel. That is something you don't hear on Making a Murderer, as well as the forensic matchup of the bullet. Also was Stephen Avery's DNA on the hood latch to the hood of Teresa's RAV4. The battery had been disconnected on that vehicle when it was found, and obviously the hood had to be opened for that to be done, and Stephen Avery's DNA is there. The license plates were taken off of the RAV4, and those were found thrown in a junked vehicle just down the road from Stephen Avery's trailer. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of scientific physical evidence that pointed toward Stephen Avery and no one else.
John Lee, I've gone over and over the physical evidence.
All right, folks, I am going to go ahead and end it there for today. There's a bit more to that podcast, but I'm going to save it because it largely involves this gentleman she had on there, Mr. His name was Vooney, I believe it was. Anyway, he is the one who was very much advocating for Brendan, explaining that, to the other guests there, who he was basically ganged up on, almost like 4 against 1. But he was the one trying to explain that Brendan Dassey's confession was coerced, that he was essentially not equipped to handle the interrogation that was brought to him. And he's that guy, and he has a few things to say where he talks about SCOTUS, he talks about the law, he talks about interrogations and wrongful convictions, kind of. So I'm going to have that for after Christmas, something that I can come back and we can talk about Brendan, SCOTUS, and those things, and I can kind of finish up with Nancy Grace. But what I would say tonight, after finishing up this video, to Nancy Grace, please think about sticking to those missing cases. I know you and Lee Egan were doing some very good work when you were doing that. You really helped out the family of somebody that a very dear friend of mine was very concerned about. And you were able to get in there and get the closure for that family with your skill set that it's completely impossible to deny the good that you did there and that you could continue to do in cases like that, instead of weighing in on the Avery case, because your information, you keep saying you've gone through this evidence in this case, but I don't see it. I mean, I pointed out as this video went, I pointed out exactly where your information is not correct. It's not. It's flawed. Some of it is highly flawed. And that's why I would say to please stick to helping those people that really, really need it. Keep Lee Egan working on that sort of stuff, because pitting her against Brendan, where she's now writing articles about Brendan, who many people believe is a kid who was victimized. It goes against what she's trying to do. She is a reporter who is trying to help find missing kids. That's like what she does best. And I think getting involved in this whole Making a Murderer thing, I think it has gotten you guys it's taking you away. It's taking you away from where you could really be helpful and where you could really have impact and where you could really do some good. And that's where I'm going to leave it. No hellfire and fury, just my advice to you. Because you did ask, Nancy, how come you and I are seen as the bad guys, Tom Fassbender, or something to that effect? Well, I hope that in this video, I have hopefully pointed out some of the reasons why. And maybe if you see this and take some of the points I was pointing out to you and really understand that some of the things that you're claiming aren't quite true, and at least if you move forward in the future reporting about actual facts of the case and not believing everything that Tom Fassbender tells you. Okay, I know you want to. He's your friend, right? Or he's somebody that you're, or whatever it is, business colleagues, whatever it is. But no, he is not as trustworthy as you might think. And I don't know that you can really trust every single thing that comes out of his mouth, because I've been seeing where he's made some false statements too. And when you have a case that's a good case, that's a solid case, you don't need to lie about it. And that's the truth of it. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and call this video. I'll be back, obviously, for another video for Christmas. And then, obviously, I will finish up, as I said, with the remainder of this podcast with the gentleman who was advocating for Brendan in this podcast. And we'll talk a little bit about SCOTUS and hopefully what's in the future regarding Brendan and Stephen a little bit. So that's it for now. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already, and Merry Christmas.